Good evening. I call the Planning Commission meeting of March 6 to order. I request Commissioner Gandhi to for Pledge of Allegiance.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Roll call, please. Commissioner Byrd,
Here.
Commissioner Gandhi,
Here.
Commissioner Polito,
Here.
Vice Chair Gilheis,
Here.
Chair Javeri.
Yes.
All members noted present for the record. Thank you.
Next is the public comments and suggestions. This section is reserved for comments related to items not listed on the agenda, but that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Anybody in the audience would like to take this opportunity for any public comments? This is the time.
Good evening, Chair. Before the public comments and suggestions section of the meeting is closed, seeing as there's nobody here to speak this evening, I do want to note that in advance of tonight's meeting, a public comment was received for the February meeting, and the public comment requested a change in the format of the publication of Planning Commission agenda documents. And so in response to the public comment that was received, starting with this meeting this evening, the March 6th Planning Commission meeting, agenda documents posted on the city's website are now in searchable format. And so I do want to note that for the Planning Commission's knowledge, as well as those who are at home watching this evening, Planning Commission documents are now posted in PDF searchable documents in response to that public comment. Nothing further under this item for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the February 7th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any comments or
I motion to approve.
Sorry, just one sec. Is it on? Chair Javeri, if you could please close the public comment period, the public comment section as well.
Okay, sure. I thought there was nobody in the audience, so I didn't. Well, anyways, the public comments and suggestions section is now over. Moving along, the approval of the February 7, 2024 meeting minutes.
I move approval.
I'll second it.
Thank you. A motion was made by Commissioner Byrd and seconded by Commissioner Gandhi. I'll go ahead and start the vote. One moment. If you could please place your vote. Motion carries by a vote of 4-0-1 with Chair Javeri abstaining for the record. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the review and consideration of Precise Plan 2024-2.
Yes, and members of the Planning Commission, item 6A this evening is a consideration and request for approval of Precise Plan 2024-2, a proposal by the residential property owners to construct a first floor addition to an existing two-story single-family residence. This presentation this evening will be given by Associate Planner Matrey Anthony.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. Good evening, Chair and Cerritos Planning Commissioners. The property owners at 19651 Jeffrey Circle are proposing to construct an 899 square foot first floor addition to an existing two-story single-family home. For details of this project, I'd like to direct your attention to the screen for a presentation. This is an aerial view of the subject property, which is generally located at the eastern end of 195th Street at the intersection of Shoemaker Avenue. This is a large aerial view that shows the details of the property. The subject property is bordered on the north by a single-family home. To the south is the Coyote Creek River Channel. To the east of the subject property is a cul-de-sac end of Jeffrey Circle, across from which are residential properties. And to the west is Shoemaker Avenue. This is a view of the front of the existing two-story home looking west from Jeffrey Circle. This is a view of the existing two-story home looking northwest from the side yard where the proposed room addition will be constructed. This is the proposed site plan. As mentioned, the applicants are proposing to construct a 899 square foot first floor addition to an existing residence. As proposed, the project will meet all setback and lot coverage requirements. This is a proposed first floor plan. Upon completion, the first floor will include a living room, a dining room, a family room, a kitchen, a bedroom, a pool room, a study, 2 powder rooms, and 2 bathrooms. This is the existing second floor plan. It includes a master bedroom with master bathroom, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a study. This is the front elevation. The residence will be finished with a beige color stucco and black trim. In addition, decorative stone veneer will be added at the base of the home to the front, rear, and south side elevations. This is the rear elevation. All new windows and doors will be detailed with 4-inch wide trim. This is the north side elevation. Stone veneer is proposed along the north side of the elevation in areas that are publicly visible. And this is the south elevation, which features the same architectural features indicated on previous slides. The architect has prepared a color palette and materials board for the Planning Commission's review. And it's here at the front of the podium. It's a little heavy, so if you guys want to come down, you can take a look at it. All exterior colors will be subject to the approval and of the Department of Community Development to ensure that these elements complement the entire house and surrounding homes. This concludes the PowerPoint presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Precise Plan 2024-2, subject to all the conditions of approval contained in this report. The project is categorically exempt from SEQA review. To date, staff has not received any comments as a result of the public hearing notice. The homeowner is in the audience, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or suggestions from my fellow commissioners?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm against ADUs. But when you've got a property as beautiful as this property, and mainly because there's no parking for ADUs, you got crowded streets, you'll have parties and you'll have to take a shuttle to the house. That's what's going to happen, mark my word. But this property, this gorgeous property, has a huge RV area that you can park 2 cars, maybe 3. And so it's a perfect situation, is what I think.
So, a couple of things. This may sound like a dumb question. Can you tell me the difference between a powder room and a bathroom?
A bathroom is essentially has a commode, a toilet, sink, shower. Powder room is just the commode and sink.
Okay. I didn't see this as an ADU.
Well,
right? This is not an ADU.
Yeah, you're right. It isn't. So I take that part of it back. But it isn't. It is a room addition. Is it for it is attached, right?
It is attached.
Right. Did you ever consider having it detached, or was there no room for it, or?
I will let the homeowner answer that question.
Okay.
Before
If
we
I
op-
may, if I may, before we have the homeowner come up, the chair will need to open the public comments section for this item. It's up to you as chair if you want to finish questions and comments by members of the commission before the homeowner speaks. Okay, so we'll call you up in just one moment when the chair opens the public comment section. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to, if I may, members of the commission, provide just some clarification and a little note here. So you are correct. What's before you today is not an ADU. This is an addition to an existing single-family home. And just for the benefit of those watching at home, and then also the benefit of the Planning Commission, pursuant to state housing law, ADUs are not discretionarily reviewed by the Planning Commission. The city staff are required to ministerially or administratively approve ADUs. And so two separate things. One, this is a room addition, not an ADU. And then secondly, if this was an ADU, it would not be coming before the Planning Commission for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner?
Yes.
Why have we been approaching and viewing all these ADUs before?
Very good question. So what has come before the Planning Commission before are room addition projects or the addition of a new second story. And as part of that element of those projects, those homeowners were also proposing separately ADUs. And so the room addition or the addition of a second story meets the threshold in square footage for Planning Commission review. And so those items were presented to the Planning Commission, not the ADU, but the addition to the home or the new second story. And although the project included an ADU, and that's why the mention of the ADU were in those past reports for your information, for informational purposes also, that, hey, for an example, hey, they are adding a new second story and they are also adding an ADU, but you, Planning Commission, unfortunately don't have discretionary authority to review or weigh in on the ADU. It's just that in that scenario, the second story.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
So I did have, at the moment, one more question. So I was looking at the pictures, and it's Exhibit 11, which is this one. And it looks like with the addition, the back wall is going to have like those folding, sliding glass doors. Is that correct understanding of the design? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that'll be the folding, sliding ones, and then the other looks like French doors as well on the backside. That's a beautiful design. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was reading the drawings right. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Gandhi?
No.
No. Anything from you? No. Having no other comments, we now open the public comments section open. Anybody from the audience would like to say something on this, or the homeowner?
Thank you for your time today. I think we drove Maytrade crazy here because we originally were saying, yeah, this is an ADU, it's an ADU, but it was my own ignorance. I didn't realize that it had to be detached from the home. We fully intend this to be used by parents and family. We have a very large family. We don't have a bedroom downstairs, so that was one of the main things, even though my teenager is wanting to take claim to this once it's built. But certainly this is not, our intention was never to rent this out or have it as an ADU. It's always been for our primary usage of our family, of my parents, my wife's parents, and cousins and family visiting from out of town. But like I said, my daughter is probably going to lay claim to that really cool bedroom downstairs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience like to have any questions or say something on the subject? Seeing none, we now close the public comment section. Next is the review and consideration of Precise Plan 2024.
If I may, Chair, if there are no further comments or questions of the Planning Commission, may I call for a motion for item 6A?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, if I may, the motion and the second, a motion made by Commissioner Gandhi, second by Vice Chair Gilheist to adopt a resolution approving Precise Plan 2024-2. If you give me just one moment, I will go ahead and activate the vote. Okay, vote is activated. Okay. One moment. Alrighty, all votes in, and motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you.
Congratulations. And you do have a fight on your hands, I'm sure, with your daughter, because that's a great plan you guys put
I
together.
can update you and let you know. Thank you.
Next is the reports from the community development.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. For me this evening, I just want to report that this week, starting today, I've been honored to attend the League of California Cities Planning Commissioner Academy. Today, I sat in on a few sessions, but one in particular about ethics and the Brown Act and conflict of interest in a planning commissioner capacity, as well as a staff capacity in serving the Planning Commission. And so very insightful information about my role here in the city of Cerritos and my role as support staff to you, Planning Commission. And so upon receipt from the League of California Cities of the PowerPoint presentations, which they did indicate would be sent out next week, I'm happy to provide this to the Planning Commission as well for informational purposes. So other than that, I've got the next 2 days of that academy, and I'd be happy to report at the next meeting as well. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any reports from the planning commissioners?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank staff for providing us with this quarterly update on ongoing development projects in the city. I really appreciate that. And then secondly, just wanted to say I attended the red carpet film premiere, and I know some of the staff were there on February 21st regarding the documentary about the Cerritos Auto Square. Just in general, I was glad to see this happen because Cerritos is on the map because of the Auto Square. Not many people know about the history, and hearing the testimony, seeing the images, and seeing the staff and everyone that was involved. It was really eye-opening, and as many know, history becomes lost, but then having this documented and then available for future generations to learn from is really, really kind of exciting. So I just want to congratulate everyone that was involved with this and encourage everyone to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Polito. Commissioner Gandhi?
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to the last meeting, and I had talked about a couple of things. One was about the traffic and pedestrians. I was fortunate to get some communication from a resident, and I greatly appreciate the tips they provided for safe pedestrian use. And I don't know if it's appropriate to ask these questions at this time, but I happened to see, and I forget which city it is, but they have this pedestrian walk area where when somebody hits that button, it triggers the flashing lights. And these were a few flashing lights. And I thought it was one of those things that I would like the appropriate department to consider. It would be just at least to look at whether that safety aspect of it can be taken care of. The other questions I'd asked was about the fiber optic network, and tried to gather some information, but I have a few questions. One of the first questions is I was told it was only about 1% of the city that has been, where the fiber has been laid, and there was no date of completion. So is this fiber going to be something that is, how should I say, not obsolete in the near future? Is there some kind of fiber optic that carries a very high broadband? Because I think we're investing a lot of money into this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Gandhi. I'll go ahead and in just a moment turn your attention to Acting Director of Public Works and City Engineer Dario Simoes. But first, I do want to ask that he elaborate. I appreciate the insight into methods used by another city for crossings, and I know we in Cerritos have those as well, and so I will ask Mr. Simoes to elaborate on that. Separately on the broadband and fiber optic, as I believe I mentioned at the last meeting, the council has, through their strategic planning and a strategic budgetary process, allocated 14 million and some change towards broadband efforts here in Cerritos through the Department of Public Works as well as the city's MIS division. But I can ask Mr. Simoes to provide additional insight in timing and project scope for the expenditure of that $14 million. Mr. Simoes?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Thank you for the question, Mr. Gandhi. There are two questions actually they're involved. The first question I'll address is regarding the flashing beacons that you mentioned for pedestrian crossing. The city actually owns and operates 10 such locations. 3 of those locations are soon to be reinstated, and there are 6 other locations that currently have functioning what are called rapidly repeating flashing beacons, abbreviated to RRFBs. When a pedestrian approaches the intersection, they press the button and you'll see on either side of the street yellow flashing lights. They're LED lights, they're very bright, they can be seen from a fair distance away from drivers on both approaching approaches. Now, these are locations that are not regular traffic signals. They are locations that are typically mid-block. Either they serve a school or they serve a particular significant pedestrian movement. In other words, where there's many pedestrians crossing this location. And the 3 locations that we have recently approved the replacement thereof, because, and I say replacement because about 15 to 20 years ago, we placed what were called IWRLs, in roadway walking lights, IRWLs. And what those were they were the same concept. Instead of the light being on a pole flashing yellow, they were in the roadway, in the pavement, and they would flash yellow. About 7 to 10 years after those were installed, they were completely unserviceable, and no company was making them anymore, and they needed to be replaced. So systematically, the city has been replacing those. The other ones that you had mentioned are best known as a HAWK system. It's a highly actuated walking crosswalk, abbreviated HAWK as an HAWK. And those types of crosswalks are a little bit more involved. Those look like a traffic signal, and I believe these are more of the ones that you're mentioning. When a pedestrian presses the button, there aren't flashing yellow beacons. There's literally two or at least one red light, as if it were a traffic signal, that turns on and it begins to flash red and then stays red on the whole time. We have one location that is designed but yet not programmed yet to be installed. They are very expensive to be installed. And that location would be at Del Amo and Claretta, right in front of Tetzloff. That location is a little bit more difficult than the other locations throughout the city to install. Not only would that device be significantly more expensive to install, it crosses two jurisdictions, Cerritos and City of Lakewood. So there needs to be discussions as to who maintains it, i.e. which city maintains it, for how much, and how this system would be maintained ongoing throughout the years. However, the plans are there, and by the end of this fiscal year, we should have 9 locations of the yellow flashing beacons throughout the city. If someone wishes to know which exact locations those are, they're more than welcome to contact the Engineering Division of Public Works, and we can provide a location map or a description of where these locations are. Moving on to the fiber optic question, as Ms. Aguila did point out, the City Council did provide direction to city staff to begin the installation of approximately $15 million of a fiber optic system that would provide high-speed internet to businesses throughout the city. This program would be enacted over in a phased manner. The first phase is to provide that internet access, that high-speed internet access, within the Cerritos Town Center. Reason being is because it's close to the City Hall. It provides significant multi-types of businesses, not only commercial, but also office use space. So it's a location that would be prime for this type of service to provide to the constituents that live with that work within that area. And that process will begin very shortly. What's involved is the placement of conduit within the streets, and then once that conduit is placed, then a fiber optic line, a significantly large fiber optic line, is placed within these conduits that veers out into each individual business as they elect to utilize this service. In terms of, you mentioned about 1%, what the city has been doing prior to this is that we have been placing in anticipation when we perform our arterial street program, so the repavement of our arterial streets. As we do this, prior to actually working on the asphalt, we perform a holistic approach. So we maintain the concrete, we provide new ADA-approved curb ramps, we will trim trees or remove trees, replace them with trees that are more appropriate for that stretch of arterial, and we will install conduits for the future use of fiber optic transmission lines. Again, we have performed about 1% of the city's arterial streets in terms of where conduits currently lie within. And as we perform an ongoing arterial street program, we will install more in conjunction with the council mandated program to more aggressively install fiber optic conduits and fiber optic lines throughout the city. I can't really answer to the other questions or the other nuanced questions of the demand or the mechanisms, because that's something that is somewhat unknown at this point. It's something that the city has not offered before, so I can't really provide background in terms of how much customers the city would have, because it's extremely in its infancy at this point. However, the method in which we would implement it is as I described already.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to go into the fiber part a little bit more. So what's the maximum speed or minimum speed, or what's the range of speed that this fiber that you're going to lay provide?
The current thoughts of the speed that we're intending to provide is anywhere between 25 megabits per second to 40 megabits per second. That's the current thoughts of the speed. As I understand it, I'm not quite an expert in internet transmission and speed, but as I understand it, that's about a 10-fold increase over current speeds that you would get through, say, a cable connection or a typical telephone DSL type of connection.
Do you know the speed, if the current providers are able to provide the speed that you propose to provide?
I believe current providers are able to provide that, however, at a significant cost. And so again, that type of consideration is still within its infancy. Again, we're not quite sure whether we'll be providing 25 or 40 or even potentially 100 megabits per second. But the faster one needs a connection, the more expensive that connection is, because you need more fiber optic cables drawn to your business, physically drawn to your business, in order for that connection to perform faster. It's somewhat akin to, do you want a Ferrari or do you want a Honda Civic? You're going to pay more for the speed, and the question is, what's your need versus what your business need is.
So you're proposing to provide this service at a higher speed service at a lower cost? Is that what I'm understanding?
That is the current expectation, yes.
Okay. And so the hope is that you will be able to provide higher speed internet connection to the businesses in Cerritos
Yes.
than what is available at the current time, but which is possibly something that can be offered by commercial providers, notwithstanding the cost of it.
Correct.
So is that a clear statement? I mean, is that a good statement?
Correct.
Do I understand this correctly?
Correct.
So as far as the fiber is concerned, it seems like by the time we put through the fiber and turn it on, we're looking at a few years, or at least more than a year. Would that be true?
It depends on the area in which we're speaking of. It does take a significant amount of time to physically install this equipment and install this infrastructure. One can't spend $100 million and suddenly snap their fingers and it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes time to actually construct it. Again, the first location in which we'll be installing this is within the Cerritos Town Center. And we should be able to have these conduits and the ability to offer this service to businesses within the town center within anywhere between 6 to approximately 12 months. It depends upon the weather patterns, it depends upon the availability of materials, depends upon how quickly we can physically, literally connect all of this equipment, of course.
No, I appreciate it.
If I may also add, just that the council, through that strategic planning process, has directed staff to make that project a priority project in the current and next fiscal year. And so the direction from council is to implement quickly with those funds allocated.
I appreciate that information. So you are likely to provide service to businesses at a lower cost, which in effect should create competition so that the commercial providers can provide better service at a cheaper cost. Would that be kind of a side effect of what you guys are doing?
That would be the city's hope, but the city's hope, of course, would be that they would elect to use the city's service versus other providers.
Yeah. And so because it's so limited to businesses, does the city expect to break even or even make a profit with this service that you will be providing to the businesses?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Again, the city's council direction is to install the equipment to then begin offering the service. It's unknown at this point. It's impossible to tell who will elect to choose this, to have the service, and at this point in time, exactly how much profit the city would generate. It's simply impossible to answer that question at this time.
So I'm going to make a statement so that I can clearly understand what you're saying at this point. The city is going to invest $14 million laying fiber to provide internet service to businesses in Cerritos without knowing if any of those businesses are ever going to take up your service offered And so we got $14 million invested when we don't know what the outcome is likely to be. In my mind, there is a possibility that when you come in and you offer something at a cheaper price, the commercial providers are going to undercut you or at least match you. I fail to understand why the city would be making a $14 million investment without even knowing, like, the end result of it. Would that be a fair statement?
If I may, just jump in here for just a moment. So, in preparations of presenting information to council at their request, staff did reach out, as Mr. Simoes mentioned, the first phase is the town center. And so staff has contacted representatives from businesses within the town center who have expressed interest in a broadband network supplied by the city. Not free. Nobody's talking cost at this point. As Mr. Simoes indicated, it is not within Dario or Mr. Simoes or my expertise to understand at this point the cost-benefit analysis. Council provided direction to staff to implement a broadband network, and at the discretion and direction of the city council and the city managers, that is staff's direction to do so, and so it has been incorporated in the budget and the capital improvement program accordingly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But has there been a cost-benefit analysis done to the best of your knowledge?
Again, it's difficult, it's virtually impossible to determine a cost-benefit analysis until that utility is in full functionality. Because at this point, we're not sure, again, at what cost the system will come at, nor are we absolutely sure at what sale price we can obtain that is competitive and or significantly more attractive than the other companies.
Okay.
I would also just quickly caution and just caveat for the record that the specific deal points, decision points that were considered by the city council were discussed during that meeting when it occurred. And I think it would caution both the public and you, Commissioner Gandhi, as well as anyone else who's interested to understand that what staff is able to relay is based off of their own personal knowledge. And it's not really binding, I guess, to say as to what the city's position is, which is espoused by the actions of the city council. So while, whatever cost-benefit analysis you might be considering, there might be other factors that were considered as well that Mr. Simoes can't speak to or what, is unable to right now because he's not because he's not prepared. He clearly is very prepared. But I would just caution that Mr. Simoes' current recitation of what his understanding of the policy and the goals is as he's been directed is not entirely what the city's position is as to these things.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. And, he is very well prepared, and I do appreciate that. So I'm going to make a statement, and I'm going to leave it at that on this particular subject matter. And I would like if my fellow Commissioner Gilheist would kind of give me some counsel on this one, since you're in the finance and stuff. It's very hard for me to understand as a layperson, and this is not a comment on the staff or the project you're doing or anything. I fail to understand how we're going to invest $14 million in a project, which is something that very well could have very poor adoption. And I just hope that there is a very good benefit and cost analysis that is done, because it really is hard for me to understand how you would invest $14 million unless you know down the road that there is benefits or at least the cost will be recovered. So I'm going to leave it at that. On the traffic thing, you mentioned there was, I forgot to write, how many crossings do we have where the flashing light is there?
There are currently 6 of them that are active and 3 that should be active by the end of this fiscal year, so by the end of June.
And how many of these are like regular crossings, like street crossings?
All of them are regular street crossings. Off the top of my head, there's one in front of Cerritos Elementary School. There's one at Palo Verde and Droxford. There's one at Gridley and I want to say 176th Street that crosses Artesia and Cerritos. There's several others. Again, like I said, off the top of my head, those are the three that come to my mind. But there are six that are currently, yes, six that are currently active and three that should be active by June 30th.
Yeah, I do commend you guys for doing that, and I truly appreciate that you guys are doing this. We've had a fatality in this city, a pedestrian fatality in the past, and I think the cost-benefit analysis on this would be it would be better to put it on so that something like that doesn't happen. So I would urge you guys to look at probably doing it closer to schools first, but down the road putting it in. This is kind of a personal experience thing that I'm talking about. I did mention it in the last meeting. So my hope is that you will have it at most intersections that are used heavily, especially in the city. And that's all from me, sir. Thank you much.
Thank you, Commissioner Gandhi. Commissioner Gilhais.
Just really quickly, thank you for the reports tonight. You guys always do a great job, always give us a lot of information, so I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to remind people of, excuse me, is that Friday, March 8th is International Women's Day. And so I always get excited about this every year. What I love about it is they pick a theme. Each year is a separate theme, but it's a global recognition, and it's focused on recognizing women's social, economic, cultural, and political achievements. So to all your friends, your colleagues, I love my son always sends me a text that morning, Happy International Women's Day, Mom. I think it's great to have this recognition, and so I say to all the women out there from me, have a great Friday this Friday. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilhais. Commissioner Bud.
Mr. Gandy, those are great points when you're talking about the techno, and this thing is taking so slow to take place. The technology is going to be changing just that much quicker over time. So something that you put in place today may not be practical 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So, and the process is ridiculously slow. But I appreciate your efforts in it. But I have another question. Do you handle? Do you have anything to do with the Parks and Recreation? Is this issues that we talk about?
The Parks and Recreation Commission, there is a separate commission.
Right,
Parks
I know
and
that, but do we ever address those issues here? Because one of the jungle gyms at the Gridley Park burned down like 4 or 5 months ago and still has not been replaced. I live right there, and we appreciate what that had to offer, and there's nothing. And the next jungle gym is all the way down the other end of Gridley Park at on Gridley, next to Gridley. So anybody know about that?
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. So that wouldn't necessarily be a Parks and Recreation Commission item, but I will defer to Mr. Samos, who oversees our capital improvement program, to see if there's any plans either in the current fiscal year or preliminarily or conceptually being discussed for next fiscal year, with the caveat that the capital improvement program has not been finalized nor considered by the Cerritos City Council.
Thanks. As Ms. Aguilar mentioned, we're still going through the capital improvement program for next year, and that park was not envisioned to be repaired this current fiscal year because it was basically due to vandalism. The park, that location, that playground didn't need any repair, but when somebody burns everything down, well, you end up getting what you're getting. And so that expense was not foreseen in this fiscal year, and we're attempting to perform that work. And but before we perform that work, we want to make sure that we would be reimbursed through our insurance or reimbursed through the potential investigative forces that may financially responsibilize, if you will, the people that did cause that damage. In anticipation of that, we are already investigating, as my understanding, that Recreation and the Recreation Commission is already investigating a new playground equipment in there. And once that equipment is purchased and or at least ordered, then Public Works will take possession of that equipment as it arrives, and we will install that equipment, and we will install the rubberized surface back to its former condition with obviously brand new equipment. So at this point in time, we have plans to reestablish that park as soon as we possibly can, but it is a process to get the right equipment according to today's requirements in playgrounds. They change almost on a yearly basis. Things such as fall zones for children, they need to be a certain distance from where the equipment is. Concrete gap has to be a certain distance away, so on and so forth. There's many different types of conditions, basically code that may change how we install this new equipment there. But we are currently looking into that. Hopefully, if we can obtain that equipment quickly, we will install it as quickly as possible. But I guarantee you that's not gone on deaf ears from day one, where we've been investigating, attempting to perform that work and reestablish that park to its former appearance and usefulness.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, we all have neighbors who are always asking, telling us things we need to talk about, right? So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. Well, there is nothing else to report, so we'll adjourn the meeting.